Your role is a voice therapist. What's a voice therapist, Maria?
So, a voice therapist is a speech and language therapist who has specialised in working with people who have problems with the quality or sound of the actual voice. So, not the pronunciation of words, not with a stutter, not necessarily following a stroke or anything, but the actual quality of their voice. So, very often people like teachers who've maybe strained their voice, or singers who having trouble with the pitch or the quality or the range of their voice. And then as well as that, sort of more of the other medical problems that might cause that as well.
So it struck me thinking about this that you're going to be in big demand for another group, which is healthcare workers, really, because we're wearing masks for long periods. We're having to raise our voice to get people to hear us. We're not able to take drinks when we want to. And then when we're not in
Yeah.
hospital, we're spending a long time on the telephone or on video conferencing, dealing with rubbish
Yeah.
audio. So what are your top 3 tips to help people through lockdown in terms of their voice, do you think?
I think always stay hydrated. I think staying hydrated is probably the most important thing. I think definitely taking time to relax whenever you can, making sure that mentally and physically you're as well as you can be, so that even during those times when you're having a hard time, you get space each day to physically relax your body and let some of the tension go is really, really important. What else? What would be my final one? Probably hydration again.
That's fine. That's fine. Get the message across. I did make sure I got a glass of water knowing you were on rather than a glass of wine.
Very good. I did wonder if it was gin, actually. So
Yeah, well, that's later on. So you haven't always worked in the NHS. What were you doing before you were in the NHS?
So I have 2 strands before the NHS. I worked as a professional cook for quite some time.
Yeah.
Well, quite some time, a few years. And I also studied at art college before I joined the NHS. And some of the cooking also went on when I was studying at art college and also when I was training to be a speech therapist. So those are the 2 things that I've done, really. And I went to Dartington College of Arts before it closed down. So I'm originally from mid-Devon. I trekked all the way to South Devon to go to Dartington.
And what were you actually doing at Dartington?
I was doing a very strange course, which was neither one thing nor the other. It was called visual performance. So it wasn't quite art, it wasn't quite theatre. I think probably a easier to understand name would have been performance art. Very, very, very modern.
So would you like me to spring something on you about doing some performance art now? No.
No.
That's fine. So we're not going to talk about that at all tonight. We're going to talk more about the cooking side, and in particular, what a particular aspect of that. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that passion of yours?
Yes. So I've always liked making cakes and baking in general. And over the last couple of years, I've discovered that I really like decorating cakes in particular. I probably enjoy decorating the cakes more than I enjoy eating them, but it's fairly close. I've been really lucky to be asked to do a couple of different cakes for people. And I really enjoy doing the big fancy showy cakes if I can. There's not a lot of call for those just for around the house. But
Shall I put some pictures up?
Yes, you could put some pictures up.
You want to talk us through some of these?
So that's just a simple birthday cake. So that's quite easy with really basic piping and chocolate buttons on that. And something piping like that is really, really simple. Anybody could have a go at doing something like that. That one's there as a really good example of what happens when you start to make cakes go higher and you don't put structure in them. So what you pretty soon learn when you start to try and make taller cakes is that you have to start putting scaffolding inside them.
Okay. I was thinking that looked like one of the most mouth-watering of all of them, actually. But
yeah, that's a Black Forest gatto cake.
yeah.
So yeah, very nice. But it was very slippy slidey and it could have done with scaffolding. That's probably one of my favourite kinds to eat, that sort of cake. And again, once you start going up more than a few layers, you start to have this sort of thing in the middle. I don't know if you can see these sort of straw things that I'm holding up there. So you would have lots of those kind of going through the middle of it so that it doesn't start sliding around. One of the things that I never thought I would need for cake making was a level. Actually, that's really important. You need to level up the sides and level up the top. Otherwise, it looks like your cake's been drinking as well, which is not what you want, particularly when they get more than one tier. This one was probably about my most fun cake to make ever. This was for a birthday party, and the theme was seaside. And I had a huge amount of fun making all of those shells on the top go shiny. And the icing on the side, you can't see hugely well from the shot, but it's sort of different coloured icings blended into each other. And the bubbles actually, which look quite good in my opinion, are only the little sort of ones that you can buy just from Tesco's, but put in to look like little bubbles. So I was very pleased with that one. And the sand is blended up biscuit crumbs and sugar and almonds. So that's quite tasty as well. You can even eat the sand.
That was my question. Is it all edible? Yes.
It's all edible. I have to admit, I didn't make the chocolate shells on the top, but I did paint them gold. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was actually really high. It was about that big. So it was a huge, great big cake, very sturdy. And that had about 8 layers going through the center of it when you cut it open. Yeah, that one. So very, very tall, very big. I think that fed about 40 people in the end.
Wow.
So it was a whopper.
Wow.
The most scary bit about the cake making is when you hand it over to somebody to get it to the venue. It's much better if you can get somebody to pick the cake up from you and take it away. If you have to deliver it, it's terrifying.
I'm going to put some pictures on of the cake you made for your sister to talk us through, and then I know you've got some bits to actually show us on your kitchen table, so we need to leave time for that. So I think if you talk us through, so if I put that one on, and then I can show the other ones.
Yeah, so this is a clue. My sister got married last year, and my sister's gay, and she wanted to have a rainbow cake to celebrate that, but she was also actually having a very traditional wedding. Both her and her partner had full traditional white gowns, veils, the full business. And so the cake on the outside looks completely traditional, and then when you open it up, it was rainbow all the way through. So this is just a practice cake to show. This is quite interesting because you probably can see here that the edge of the cake is not exactly perfect. So after this was just doing some practices to see how to do it. And after this, I realized that I needed a cake leveler. And also there are special techniques to make sure that your cake doesn't shrink back from the sides of the cake tin. So yeah, that was just, we did lots of practices. My neighbours, and actually I think outpatients at Newton Abbot Hospital had quite a lot of rainbow cake. So this is my lovely grandma with all of the cake that was required just for one tier of the wedding cake. So that looks like a huge amount, but actually what you end up doing is slicing the top and the bottom off of each of the different layers so that it's completely uniform, and then stacking them together. So it was quite an undertaking, and that's the final cake. So you wouldn't know from the outside what you had going on the inside, which I thought was amazing. Really nice. It was really fun. They did want to have a whole load of Skittles as well going all the way through the middle, but they just got too complicated at that point as to where you'd cut it with all the structure and the scaffolding. So that actually would have had, I think it had 6 bits of scaffolding in the base going onto a board, and then 4 in the next one. And the whole thing has a sort of large pole going all the way through the middle of it, which you slot each one down onto to stop it from sliding all over the place. And that cake actually had to be delivered over the Blackdown Hills. So we had to go up one side and down the other side in my stepfather's car, praying all the way that the cake wasn't going to slide and crash. So quite nerve-wracking.
So
it was
I'm going to
slightly...
stop.
Yeah.
I know you were going to show us some stuff. I don't quite know what you've got lined up to show us, but I know you've got some things there.
Yeah, I'm going to turn you around and just tell me what you can see. So I'm going to try and move things in. So I can show you, this is a cake leveler. I don't know if I can turn it so you can actually see the table or not.
Yeah.
Is that visible or not?
Yeah.
So with the cake leveler, I'll just explain, if you have a little piece of sponge, here's a piece of sponge that I had prepared earlier. So if you wanted these to all be the same height, they're not very beautiful bits, these are bits my daughter very kindly made for me, but you can just, I don't know if you can see that, just level them with that. And then you end up getting cake bits that are all the same. So that's a very useful bit of kit that makes it look very professional, but it's actually really easy.
So it's like a cheese wire you might use for clay or something.
It's, yeah, really similar to a cheese wire. You can make the different heights that you want to. So really simple. These are the sort of things that until you get into it, you don't realise kind of how much there is that makes it much easier. I was trying to cut it with a carving knife, which was a nightmare. And then I'm afraid this cake really does not look very appetizing at the moment. But what you do, so this is lots of little layers within this, and you do a very rough coat of icing just initially, which you'd call a crumb coat, which looks absolutely rubbish. And then much like a plasterer would, you get one of these or various ones of these, and with hot water and with a cake turntable, a bit like a potter's wheel, I suppose, the turntable, you can begin to start smoothing. And it is as simple as that, really. You just keep going and going and going and smoothing and taking off icing. So you end up taking off absolutely loads and putting loads on. And it is a process of just keeping going with hot water. With some of the cakes, with some of the later cakes, they're what you call naked cakes, where people don't actually want very much icing on, so you kind of put a bit of icing and then end up scraping loads and loads of it off. But you can probably already see that that's starting to get a much more uniform circular sort of shape. So that is the basic technique for doing it.
Ah, that's amazing.
Okay.
Nick, do comments. Do you want to just bring those in for Maria? There's one from Jane.
Yeah, sure. So Jane, I love the phrase "drive like there's a wedding cake in the back." I think I'm going to adopt that as well when the kids are shouting and running around. Jane shares that she decorated and drove her sister's wedding cake 250 miles up the M5. Yes, that is going to be terrifying for sure.
Yeah, no fun at all, that.
No, I think everyone's just absolutely amazed at the cake, actually. I just want to know how it tastes. I mean, I can appreciate the beauty, but it's that taste that matters.
Well, that one's a chocolate one all the way through.
That's my favourite type. There's a few requests for birthday cakes. Kerry's asked if she can have a birthday cake, please. And Holly says the pumpkin is fantastic. So brilliant.
Kat says my cakes never rise very well. What tips have you got?
I think the stage where it's really important to mix them a lot for a good rise is at the stage where you're combining the butter and the sugar. So most cakes are a combination of butter or oil, sugar, eggs and flour in some combination. The butter and sugar stage, you want to mix a lot. Once you start putting in the flour, you have to be quite gentle with it, and it's a gentle folding. But at the butter and sugar stage, beat it a lot.
Excellent.
That would be my top tip there.
I noticed in one of the pictures, I'm not sure if we've had it really, there was a picture of your dog there that you'd snuck in. I don't know if we actually got it. But I thought that might
like to get involved. The dogs like to stand under the kitchen table when I'm cooking, because there are many, many layers and lots of trimmings and lots of crumbs, and they all stand under the table, not watching me, but watching the floor.
I thought it might be a new challenge for the group to see if people can sneak in pictures of their pets into the different pictures and things. There's a comment here. I made 100 cupcakes, a large one for the main wedding cake, but I'm a better baker for it now. Wow, that's dedication, isn't it?
And some of those cupcake ones are really, really beautiful. I don't know if anybody's seen, you can get cupcakes now which people will have a big container of them, and each one is iced to look like a flower. So it looks like you're being given a bouquet of flowers, which is
Beautiful.
lovely.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that, Maria.
I've got a sugar flower here as well, if anybody wants to see one of those. So what's really, really easy, this is not a particularly good one, but it's really easy to start modelling just the fondant that you buy from the supermarket, like you model Play-Doh, and you can make flowers out of those. Those can then be painted, which is great fun. Very easy. That's great with the kids if you're bored and they've got a few hours.
Just another question coming from Ingrid. What flour would you use for a gluten-free cake?
I would be tempted. There are some really nice ones which use ground almonds, and I think that would be the way that I go, because that makes a really nice, dense, gooey cake. Ground almonds would be the way. I haven't done a lot with the other kind of flour substitutes, and I tend to be a bit dense, the ones that I've had a go at, but I'm sure if you knew what you were doing, you could make beautiful ones.
Excellent. I think we're going to have to stop there, Maria, but
That's
are you
fine.
going to eat cake? This is the key thing. Are you going to
Am
eat
I going
cake?
to eat cake? I can slice the cake, but I'm not going to eat the cake because I'm on a diet, as you know.
Because this is one of the things that people say about baking, isn't it? It's all very well making it, but you've got to eat it then.
Well, it's not slicing very well for me. It's not slicing beautifully at all. There's some cake. I'll make my husband eat it. How does that sound?
sounds okay.